Hello, my name is Donna Snyder, and I will moderate this online candidate forum hosted by the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County for the August 4th primary. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education, and we host forums to help voters make informed choices. The forum tonight will follow a protocol beginning with 90 seconds for opening statements, followed by 2 minutes for each question, and lastly, a closing statement for up to 90 seconds. The order of speaking will alternate between candidates. It is now my honor to introduce the two candidates running for the City of Ann Arbor Ward 2 City Council, Sandy Aldrich and Teesha Montague. Thank you both for participating in this forum. Sandy, we are now ready for your opening statement.
Thank you, Donna. Hi, I'm Sandy Aldrich, and I'm running for City Council Ward 2. This is the first time I'm running for a public service role. I'm stepping forward now because Ann Arbor is at a crossroads. I want to ensure current workers and the next generation are able to have the same opportunities as we've had for our family. I'm a double Wolverine, go blue, and have called Ann Arbor home for 28 years. 6 years as a renter, 4 as an undergraduate, and 2 as an MBA, and 22 of those years as a Ward 2 homeowner. My husband Ray was born and raised in Ann Arbor, and actually in Ward 2, and I'm proud to say that we've raised our 3 children as K through 12 students of our public schools. I'm also super happy to share that I've been endorsed by the Teachers Union, support our teachers. My family has deep connections to Ward 2, and I'd be honored to represent our neighbors. Professionally, I bring 30 plus years of business experience across global brands and nonprofits and startups, and I'm currently have a consulting practice. Right now, my priorities are mindful growth, active guardianship, and community well-being. But most importantly, I'll be an advocate for authentic transparency. Our neighbors are legitimate stakeholders, and I'm here to listen. Thank you very much.
And now, Teesha, may we have your opening statement?
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Teesha Montague, and I am running for Ann Arbor City Council in Ward 2 because I believe residents deserve a council member who is accessible, responsive, and deeply connected to this community. For years, I've been doing the work, serving as a community service officer for the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. I'm in my second term of the Parks Advisory Commission and a leader within the Ann Arbor Housing Commission's Community Leadership Council, who recently done the Dunbar Center. Born and raised right here in Ann Arbor, I'm currently the president of the NANBPWC Ann Arbor Club. That is the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated. And I'm the coordinator of the most amazing event that I feel is happening in Ann Arbor, the African American Downtown Festival. I'm also a proud union member who understands the importance of advocating for working families. And I'm running because too many residents feel unheard as housing costs rise, longtime neighbors are priced out, and decisions are made without enough community input. I will bring compassion, transparency, and accountability with me to council. I will listen, I will ask questions, and I will work to ensure that all residents, from seniors and students to working families and small business owners, have a voice in shaping Ann Arbor's future. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And now to the questions. Teesha, we will start with you for the first question. The Comprehensive Land Use Plan passed unanimously in March 2026. Now that it's adopted, what aspects of the plan do you most want to see implemented or not implemented? And what, if anything, would you change?
Well, there are several aspects of the comprehensive land use plan that I support. First, I agree with the goal of increasing housing opportunities and creating a greater variety of housing types throughout the city. Second, I support encouraging walkable, mixed use neighborhoods that allow residents to live closer to jobs and services and parks and transit. But at the same time, I have some concerns about whether some proposed changes adequately address neighborhood infrastructure and community impacts as the growth occurs. I also believe that the city needs to do a better job of ensuring residents are meaningfully engaged throughout the entire process. I think that's what, as I've been, in community and speaking with folks, growth is important, but it should be balanced with affordability, infrastructure capacity, and preserving the character and quality of life that residents value in their neighborhoods.
Sandy, same question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I'm running because Ann Arbor is at a crossroad. We have become unaffordable for young families, teachers, city staff, young professionals, and seniors who actually would like to downsize and don't have any place to go. So I do believe that we need to increase the different types of housing in Ann Arbor, and that's what the comprehensive land use plan is intended to do. What's going to be critical now that it's passed is how it's communicated and implemented. There's still really a long road ahead of us to write the ordinances and put the guidelines in place to make it happen. So we have to be sure that we ensure that the community members know that Ann Arbor, like many other cities and states in our country, is at a housing crisis. But Ann Arbor is actually doing something about it. So this is something that makes me super proud. There'll be plenty of opportunities for public input for these guardrails, as I mentioned. And I am very excited if given the opportunity to help lead the conversation and to ensure that our neighbors and our residents, our homeowners are heard. Because I too have heard at the doors when I was knocking that people don't feel like their voices have been heard in this process. Thank you.
Sandy, the next question is yours to begin with. Another housing question. Ann Arbor currently funds affordable housing primarily by subsidizing developers to include affordable units. Some believe the city should pursue permanently affordable housing through public or community ownership instead. Which approach should the city prioritize, and how would you fund it?
So that's the billion-dollar question, right? Housing just doesn't appear out of nowhere. It needs to be, the land needs to be acquired, the buildings need to be built. It takes real money to do this. So I believe that this needs a multi-pronged approach. It can't just be one. It just can't be public housing. It just can't be private. There's some public developers, or sorry, private developers are necessary because we do need market rate housing. You do need to have housing that people are willing to pay full freight for. In addition, we need public-private partnerships in order to build houses where the developers would get some kind of a tax write-off to build it, to help it be affordable for other people. From a public sector, I know that we have vouchers and we also have some public housing projects that we are working on. But I don't believe that you can do it all in one area. There has to be multiple facets of housing in order to make things affordable.
Teesha, your response, please.
Well, as I mentioned and I continue to mention, I support a mix of housing options. That's affordable housing, that's workforce housing, that's senior housing, that's family housing, but no single solution will address our challenges. That's just where we are. I believe that we have to protect our current residents. I believe that we have to protect our neighborhoods. But I also believe that we have to protect and support affordable housing. We have a lot of luxury developments. We don't have as much affordable housing and workforce housing. So I would like to actually work with University of Michigan and the Housing Commission, and organizations that are close here in community so that they can help us and they can work with us and create meaningful, impactful, and realistic housing options for everyone. Everyone should be able to live here. Everyone should be able to thrive here. And so I support a mixed use at all income levels. People should be able to live, work, and thrive here, and not have to worry about housing costs. The barriers have to be lifted at this point. So that's one of the reasons I'm running, is for affordable housing. This is something that's near and dear to me. I believe public land should be for public use, and I stand firmly on that. And there are so many housing providers and opportunities. And yes, we may have to work with some developers, but we have to put things in place to protect not just the residents, but also our union members. We have to get those PLAs in place immediately. We have to work and work together. It has to be not us just making decisions for the people. We have to listen to community and see what they want. Everybody has all these plans and ideas. I have some ideas, but my plan is to listen to the residents and have them help us drive how this city moves forward.
Next question, Teesha, we'll start with you. The Arbor South development was approved with the largest tax increment financing deal in Ann Arbor's history, meaning the city forgoes up to $373 million in future property tax revenue over 30 years to reimburse development costs. What criteria would you use to decide if this kind of public commitment should be offered to a future similar development proposal?
Well, as I said, I support thoughtful development that helps meet our housing goals, that helps expand access to housing, that helps create opportunities for people who want to live and work here. At the same time, a project of that size must be carefully evaluated to ensure that the infrastructure is adequate. It has transportation access, the environmental considerations, and meaningful community benefits. Also, residents deserve to be informed, and engaged throughout the process. So again, it has to be affordable, it has to have connectivity, and it has to have an overall quality of life that is focused on the residents. So my focus will be on making sure Ann Arbor South and other developments like that are developed in a way that it benefits both future residents and the broader community.
Sandy, your response, please.
Yeah, so I know that this development is controversial. I've heard residents talk about it. There's a lot of information that is provided for different organizations and the city council to make decisions for something like this. That $373 million is a lot. Where I would be curious to know is how could we get that built without that, without the developers? Like, could we get grant funding to have built this 1,000 unit, development with 200 affordable units without a developer, without giving them the TIF tax break? So, this is tricky because we can't really do this on our own. I went to a presentation with Jennifer Hall where she went through the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, slides on how do you get affordable housing built. Like I said, it doesn't come out of thin air. It has to be built with real money, and that real money has to come from somewhere. So is it federal grants? Is it city taxes? It has to be done. It has to be done thoughtfully with a combination of different pieces. Was this the best way to use this TIF fund? I wasn't in the room to make the decision. They obviously had information that we don't have. And if our elected officials believe that this was the right thing to do, then, we have to trust them. Or if we don't believe it's the right thing to do, then we have to make sure that we do something about who we put into office. So I guess my response is it's going to bring 1,000 new units, 200 affordable units into Ann Arbor, and I don't know how else it would have been done otherwise. Thank you.
And Sandy, we'll have the next question to start with you. In 2024, Ann Arbor voters approved the Sustainable Energy Utility, an opt-in supplemental service that provides local renewable energy while residents remain on DTE's grid. A separate effort is now collecting signatures to put a full municipal electric utility on the November 2026 ballot, which would eventually replace DTE service on the city entirely, but would mean that the city must acquire its infrastructure through a process that has never been done in Michigan. What is your position on each of these approaches, and what do you think about the trade-offs between them?
Sure. So the sustainable energy utility is super interesting, and I'm learning more about it because this is something that just came online May. So I think the first units went up. Um, I think it's a great option. I mean, there's some funding in there for people to apply for it, to have the equipment put onto their houses to be able to take advantage of solar power using the sustainable energy utility, the city's systems. We, for one, do have solar, and our electricity bill last month was $0. It was amazing. So solar does work. So that I think is a good foray into owning some type of a sustainable utility within the city without having this huge commitment of buying the infrastructure or setting up the infrastructure. I totally get it. Electricity should be reliable, affordable, and monthly bills should be predictable. We all need predictability. And we know historically DT has not been able to meet that. We know that. And the city does need an alternative. However, it's so much money and so many unknowns to take on a utility like that. I'm just concerned about the financial commitment and the bottom line of us owning a public utility with the current proposal. I just don't think our community can shoulder hundreds of millions of dollars of debt for an unknown project. If I had been on city council, I would have voted for a second feasibility study because that is something that is important to have as much information as we can before we make a decision this big. Thank you.
Teesha, same question, please.
Okay. All righty. So the SEU, we're a little bit behind on that, where we should be. I just must say I totally support Ann Arbor's goals of transitioning to a cleaner, more sustainable energy and, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. But as I said, the discussion around SEU and this public power and I think it represents opportunities to increase local control, expand our renewable options, and improve long-term energy resilience. But at the same time, I believe residents deserve clear information about costs, benefits, reliability, and implementation before major decisions are made. This is a lot of money we're talking about. My approach is careful. I want to be careful. We need to evaluate the data. We need to listen to residents and experts. And we have to support the solutions that advance sustainability while remaining affordable and equitable for our community. We're already paying for DTE. We're already paying millions of dollars every year. So the funds are there. Would we have to seek other funding or additional funding? Absolutely. But I support us transitioning. And so whatever that looks like, I would love to work with council and community to see what the community would like to do. Again, we can only have ideas. Everyone wants us to have all these plans in place. But for me, I have been listening in community. I have been in community. I have pulled my sleeves up in this community. And so I want to represent and be where residents are. I want us to have the same ideas when we come together on council. We
Okay,
have to listen
thank
to
you,
people.
Teesha. We're going to have to stop now and go on to the next question, which actually you will start with. Ann Arbor's Green Rental Housing Ordinance, which took effect in January 2026, requires all rental units to meet energy efficiency standards at inspection. Supporters say it advances both climate and affordability goals. Critics worry that compliance costs will be passed on to tenants through higher rents. What are your thoughts on that trade-off, and what would you do if rents rise as a result? Teesha?
Well, I support the goals of green rental housing program because energy efficiency, efficient housing can lower utility costs, improve our housing quality, and help Ann Arbor rights meet and help Ann Arbor overall meet our climate goal. However, I do recognize the concerns from both tenants and housing providers about implementation costs and potential impact on housing affordability. Ding, ding, ding. My approach would be to ensure the program is effective, transparent, and balanced. We should help property owners make improvements while protecting tenants from unintended rent increases and ensuring that the benefits of energy efficiency are shared by everyone. The goal should be greener, healthier, and more affordable housing, not creating additional barriers for renters and small property owners. Thank you.
Sandy, your response, please.
Yeah, sure. With green rentals, with the solar and the insulation and the various things to make it more energy efficient, it should help with some of the utilities and costs. The rental properties have different types of contracts where those costs actually might be passed on to the landlords who cover the utilities for the renters. It's important because it's part of the Ann Arbor 820, um, the sustainable energy plan that we have in place. It is important. I agree that we need to be audacious with our goals. We need to make sure that we shoot high. Because it just came into play recently, I don't know if we necessarily know what the impacts are to the landlords and to the renters. So, as in the business world, you make a decision based on the information you have, and then you feed information in, and make modifications based on does this actually address what we wanted to address, or is it doing something that we shouldn't, unintentional consequences. So I think in theory the idea is good because it does meet our values as a city. I would really like to see how does this impact landlords and renters, and is it doing what we intended to do, or is it creating unintentional consequences? Thank you.
And Sandy, the next question is for you. You actually already mentioned something about the A20 plan, which was established in 2030, or excuse me, established 2030 as Ann Arbor's target for carbon neutrality, now less than 4 years away. Independent analysis suggests the city is significantly off track on key targets, and the city stands to lose up to $30 million in federal funding for major climate projects. What would you do to close that gap?
Yeah, 4 years is not that far away, is it? Really close. And with some of the federal cutbacks on, you know, some of the sustainability green, grants funding, it's trickier because we don't have that money to try to make things happen. Some of the things that we might want to consider, and other countries are doing this, is Ann Arbor has a lot of trees, a lot of tree coverage, Is there an opportunity, and I'm not sure if this is part of the plan, to do some carbon offsetting with the trees and the existing canopy covers? There's verified registries, something called the City Forest Credits, that looks at the number of tree coverage and the canopies, and can that be used to offset our carbon emissions that we haven't been able to address? So that's just something that might potentially be an innovative, out of the box thinking. I know that we struggle with the cars coming into the city, the non-electric cars. Could we do something innovative like, reduce parking if you don't come into the city with your car every day? Maybe you park the car in a park and ride and bring the bus in with like a reduced bus fare. Just something that is different that maybe we can consider that is doable currently. Some of the things that we do have in place, I think 4 years is short amount of time to execute on some of the tactics that are in that plan. Thank you.
Teesha, same question, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The A20 plan established 2030 as Ann Arbor's target for carbon neutrality. Now that's less than 4 years away. Independent analysis suggests the city is significantly off track on key targets, and the city stands to lose up to $30 million in federal funding for major climate projects. What would you do to close the gap?
I think we need to look at the budget. I think we need to look at the budget and see where we've gone wrong. We may need to cut some of our consultation fees. We may need to cut some of our outsourcing. Okay, we have a sustainability millage that helps fund programs that help reduce emissions and, expand clean energy options and support residents in making their homes more affordable with the windows and the insulation programs. Okay, I just think that we're not as transparent and being fiscally responsible, and it's not accessible to all residents. So we need to go back to the drawing board on it a bit. We may need to revise and amend. Okay, so if it's not working, then maybe we need to look at the budget and see why or where the spending is happening, because we're off budget, we're off by a few years, and you're saying we have 30 million in a deficiency. That's a big problem. So again, we have to look at budget first. We have to go back. We need to revisit, realign, pull in the experts. May need another feasibility study, but my number one is look at the budget. Where have we gone wrong?
Teesha, this next question is for you to begin with. City workers represented by AVSME Local 369 have been without a contract since January 2026, with many members going nearly 30 months without a raise. Union leadership has said that Ann Arbor's progressive values should extend to the wages of the people who maintain its roads, parks, and water systems. As a council member who approves the city budget, as you mentioned, where would you prioritize employee compensation among the city's other spending commitments?
I would just say I would support city workers, period, and they would be a high priority for me because the services residents depend on every day are delivered by dedicated public employees. To attract and retain a strong workforce, the city must offer competitive wages, quality benefits, and safe working conditions, right? So while I respect the collective bargaining process and I wouldn't negotiate contracts from council table, I support fair contracts that recognize the value of our city workers. And they have to help kind of cut those costs of cut that rising cost of living, and everything's going up these days, but I see it more here in the city. So investing in our workforce is ultimately an investment in the quality of services that are provided to our residents, so it would be high priority.
Sandy, please respond to the same question.
Yeah, sure. So I do know that they're not in contract, and to be quite honest, I haven't been following this very deeply, but from what I understand, listening to city council meetings, city council is 100% supportive of negotiating a new contract for this union. They're very important to the city, and they're part of this infrastructure that we just can't let up. I mean, the infrastructure of the city is the backbone, and the people who run it, they're critical, and they're critical assets to our city. So with that, from what I believe, there was a contract negotiation that was done during COVID, which put a moratorium or kind of a some type of a increase stop until a certain time period. And I believe it might have been last year. So they are actively in negotiation. I don't believe that the city is trying to not negotiate a strong contract or not negotiate a good contract for workers. I think they're caught in this gap period right now. And I'm confident that city council sitting now and then who will be sitting in November, hopefully they don't have to wait until November. Hopefully it will get resolved soon. Thank you.
And the next question will begin with Sandy. Ann Arbor's community participation processes tend to draw homeowners and organized neighborhood groups more than renters, newer residents, and lesser represented residents. What, if anything, would you do to increase the breadth of who has a meaningful voice in land use and other council decisions?
Okay. Man, this is a tricky question because it's not just homework. No one is paying attention. I got to tell you, knocking on doors, people who live here, people are so busy living their own lives. They're just not engaged with what's going on in the city. Not because the city is purposely trying to keep them in the dark. It's just people aren't engaged. So we need to we need a campaign to engage people, and it has to be on a local level because quite honestly, we don't have any media in Ann Arbor. We don't have like a local paper anymore. The Ann Arbor Observer only comes out once a month. You know, the M Live is hit or miss behind a paywall. I mean, I think the Michigan Daily is the closest thing we have to a local paper right now. So this is really a challenge. What I do like, what I've seen recently is we got a postcard from the city for the sustainable energy utility that explains what it is and information about it. You know, I know these direct mails are expensive. I think they're like about $14,000 a shot, so they're expensive. But if we can get that into the hands of all residents, renters, new residents, current homeowners, you know, different people who live in the community so they can come and engage with us like via online like Zoom calls like this. Like this is easy, right? You set up a Zoom call, anybody can dial in, record it, make it public. Social media is a big thing. I know that as much as I hate getting my news from social media, this seems to be how a lot of people get their news. So I would really encourage or work with, I guess, the city staff to make sure that we're using the media that people actually want to use to get the information out, and then do forums like this where it's easy for people to engage in without physically having to come to a location. Thank you.
Teesha, same question, please.
Well, I just think that communication is a two-way street, right? Communication and accessibility are at the heart of why I am running. And if I'm elected, I will use multiple methods to keep residents informed, including regular community meetings, neighborhood office hours, emails, newsletters, social media updates, and virtual town halls. I want residents to know not only what decisions are made, but why and how I feel, right? So, too many times, the residents get the information after decisions have already been made. They've already had their conversations, already selected their folks for the project, and already hired their consultants. And here these people are engaged in these community forums that they hold at 12:30 in the afternoon when the working families are working, They hold maybe one or two of them, and then the decision is voted on at the next meeting. That has to stop. We have to have accessibility, which means we might need to hold meetings on the weekend or in the evening. Everybody doesn't have time during the work week in the middle of the day. So I just want to change the way that we communicate with our residents, the way we do business, and the way that we do business with our residents. Thank you.
And Teesha, next question, you can start. Council decisions require building majorities, and Ann Arbor's council has a history of contested votes. How would you work to find paths forward with fellow council members who have differing views from you?
Oh, gosh. I've always been a person that chooses collaboration over conflict. There is power in partnership. So, building a consensus is essential to effective leadership. While we may not always agree on every issue, I believe most people come to the table because they care about Ann Arbor and they want what's best for our community. My approach is to listen first, find common ground, and focus on solutions rather than politics. I've spent years working with diverse groups throughout community boards and public service and housing initiatives and neighborhood organizations. Those experiences alone have taught me that progress happens when people are willing to collaborate, engage the stakeholders early, and work with colleagues and residents and local businesses and labor groups and our community partners. We've got dozens to move these policies forward that improve affordability, strengthen our neighborhoods, and enhance the quality of life for everyone here in Ann Arbor. Thank you so much.
Sandy, same question, please.
Yeah, sure. So consensus building is important for the city council because we have 11 people and not one person has more weight in their decision. So one of the things that I found that I think from my business experience has been very powerful is make sure that people who have a say are representing their units or their wards, but then also roll up and make sure we all have a common goal. The people that we elect them for a reason. You know, we shouldn't assume that there's negligence or, ill intent when they're making decisions. I think that it's very important for us to ensure that we have these tough discussions and really dissent because you need to have these constructive conversations and discussions in order to make sure that we flesh out everything that needs to be and then disagree and commit or commit and move on. So for me, it's been tricky because when we worked with U of M, because they were looking at building a bus yard in our neighborhood, there was a lot of angry people in our neighborhood, but we worked very closely to make sure we had a common voice, and we worked with the university to make sure they understood that we just wanted to be listened to and heard and seen and valued. And so that's the way I work. I work to make sure there's a common goal, that we collect the information, and that we approach things with respect, with humility, but also with some audacity, because you need to do that to make some hard decisions. Thank you.
And Sandy, this next question you'll begin. Every ward in Ann Arbor has distinct neighborhoods, challenges, and opportunities. What do you see as the most important issue or opportunity specific to your ward, and how would you approach it as a council member?
Yeah, Ward 2, right? Ward 2, we have a lot of single family homes. We have houses with relatively big yards and families that have moved into Ward 2 because of that, because there's a lot of greenery, a lot of space between the houses. We have beautiful parks. So the comprehensive land use plan as a residential zoning change is going to be one of the biggest, I guess, discussion points for Ward 2. That's the piece that I'm hearing quite a bit on the doors that I'm knocking. And it's not necessarily that people don't want additional housing. They just don't understand what this potential zoning change means for their neighborhoods and means for them. So I think part of this is when, of course, like those guidelines have not been set yet. So let's be very clear, they haven't been set yet because there's some misinformation out there that this is something that's going to be done and it's just going to be rammed through, and that's not true. So there are certain guidelines that are in the comprehensive land use plan, up to triplexes, I think 3 stories and 35 feet. But how it's executed is going to be critical with the input of our neighborhoods and our residents that currently live in our communities. So, Ward 2, like I said, is a lot of homeowners in Ward 2. And so I believe that that will be the biggest challenge in the upcoming year. Thank you.
Teesha, same question.
Alrighty. I think what I'm hearing is they want a more accountable council, a little bit more transparency at the forefront. They don't want road diets. They don't want to build in on the golf courses or parks. They don't want large buildings blocking their natural sunlight in their gardens, in their yards that are in their communities. So I there are several things, but those are some of the ones that have come out and come. I have a list, and they've come up time after time after time. So at some point, council has to get in community and listen to these folks, and they have great ideas, right? So maybe we can bring them as the stakeholders and shareholders of our community to the table. We don't have time to have these whimsical reconfigures of our road, you know, when we have potholes everywhere. So we just have to be mindful when we're spending and mindful when we're making these, you know, redevelopments or new developments or reconfigurations. And I just think that we need to talk to the folks before we make decisions. Thank you.
This will be the final question, and Teesha, we'll start with you. What is one decision Ann Arbor City Council has made in the last 2 years that you wish more residents knew about, and why? Teesha?
Uh, um, well, um, I the Klein's lot. Um, you said, is this supposed to be a positive decision or just a decision that they've made? Um, I don't know. There's just so many concerns. Um I would need to look at more information to pull one beautiful, amazing thing out. But I mean, I appreciate the work that they're doing. I appreciate the effort that they're putting through. I'm just not quite sure that it is aligning with what residents want. So I would say that I need to go back and talk to council a little bit more because I just don't have that answer right now.
Sandy?
Yeah, I guess I want to talk about Vision Zero. So this is the initiative where the desire is to have no more deaths on our road. I was not clear on this before I started to do my research on before I started running for city council. And thank God I didn't confuse A20 with Vision Zero. Those are two separate things that I learned. The Vision Zero piece of it was interesting because a lot of people talk about the bike lanes and the road diets and how much they hate those. And The interesting part of this is I started looking into, and I wish that City Council and the city would talk more about it, is the desire for Vision Zero is to make sure the roads are safe for everybody, motorists, pedestrians, and bikers. So with people driving into the city, in and out, we have 80,000 commuters coming in and out of the city daily. And with those 80,000 brings a lot of cars and those cars going pretty fast. And so I guess that's the decision that I wish that we would spend more time on is like what was behind that? Why were the roads configured the way they are? Um, and the reality is the roads are configured to slow traffic down, so we're safer within our city limits. Thank you.
And now it's time for closing statements. We will begin with Teesha.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Donna, and everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, my opposing candidate, and everyone who took time to participate in tonight's forum, right? I am running for city council because I care deeply about this community and because I've spent many years serving it. As I said, through my work in public service, affordable housing, parks, youth programming, neighborhood initiatives, and community events, I have listened to residents and I've witnessed both the strengths and challenges facing Ann Arbor. I believe our city works best when residents are informed, engaged, and included in decision making process. We need leadership that listens, asks questions, and ensures that growth and opportunity are accessible to everyone, not just a few. We must continue working towards housing affordability, vibrant neighborhoods, economic opportunity, environmental stewardship, and a city government that is responsive and transparent. I'm not running because of a title. I'm running because I have been doing the work and I am ready to continue that work on behalf of the residents of Ward 2 and the city. I will bring compassion, integrity, and commitment to collaboration to every decision I make. Together, we can build a stronger, more inclusive Ann Arbor where every resident has a voice, a seat at the table, and an opportunity to thrive. I respectfully ask for your support and your vote. Thank you so much this evening.
And now, Sandy, may we have your closing statement?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I've been a resident in Ann Arbor for 28 years as a double Wolverine and as a homeowner in Ward 2 for 22 years. We've raised our family in Ward 2 through the Ann Arbor Public Schools, and this community, this city, the people here are very dear to me. I'm stepping forward now to ensure that we do the right thing to increase the affordability and actually make this affordable for people who want to live here and really for the next generation. I would love it if our kids decided to come back and raise their families in Ann Arbor. I'm going to bring my whole self to this. I am viewing this role as a service to our community. I'm an immigrant, a child of a war refugee, double Wolverine, a spouse of 33 years, a mom for 24 years, and a business professional for 30 plus years. Um, I have, I intend to bring my operational and management skills to the city's $600 million budget. And I also would make sure that I will bring my life skills, my network, and my relationships to reliably represent our neighbors in Ward 2. I would be honored to earn their vote, earn your vote to represent you. Thank you.
This concludes our forum. Thank you to the candidates and to our volunteers for participating in this valuable session. To those watching, please vote in the primary election, in person or by absentee ballot, and encourage others to view this forum to prepare for their vote. Thank you.